Nobody really knew what Gio and Carti were. That was kind of the whole thing. For months, people had been watching them show up in the same places. Courtside, at games, festival stages, random Instagram moments, and piecing it together on their own, because neither of them ever actually said anything about it. Carti posted a photo once tagging her with the caption, "Ya ex could never," which honestly told people more than any official announcement would have. Summer Walker called Gio his wife in a studio caption after a session where Carti had come through to work on her album. She described him as a perfect gentleman and said Gio was sweet and funny. Gio had shared glimpses of him on her stories here and there, nothing major, just enough. But nothing was ever confirmed. No label, no statement, nothing that either of them put their name on directly. That's just how Carti operates. Always has been. He keeps everything close, gives the public just enough to stay curious, and never fills in the gaps himself. He's built an entire career on that kind of controlled mystery. Minimal interviews, rare explanations, a persona that feels deliberately incomplete. She got on Instagram stories and started posting, and what came out had nothing managed about it. She tagged Carti directly and told him he had until 11 a.m. to respond before she started turning things up. Then came post after post. She called him a lanky bitch, a bitch ass, told him he had met his match. She wrote that she plays with a lot of things, but a bitch ass had never been one of them. She asked fans which song they wanted first, which everyone immediately understood as a threat directed at his unreleased music. Carti had been working toward new material, and Gio clearly knew enough about it to make that threat land. She also said she would put her hands on him every single time, and told him to call whoever he wanted on her, because she was just getting started. And then she wrote something that people kept screenshotting and sharing even after everything else had faded, that on her dead grandmother's grave, he would not know peace until she, herself, was gone from this earth. Screenshots were circulating before she even had the chance to reconsider. By the time she deleted all of it, the posts were already everywhere. Fan accounts, gossip pages, entertainment blogs picked it up within the hour. The reactions came fast, and they were all over the place. But one comment kept reappearing across different platforms, passed around like something everyone had been thinking quietly, and finally had a reason to say out loud that Iggy Azalea had been talking about this man for years, and people really should have been paying more attention. Iggy and Carti have a son together named Onyx. After their relationship ended, Iggy had spoken about it in pieces over the years, never laying everything out at once, but making it clear enough that the experience had not been simple or easy.
Does your son watch streams?
No, I don't let him.
No way!
He really likes.
She had talked about raising Onyx largely on her own. She had made it understood that the version of Carti the public sees and the person she actually dealt with were different. She had always kept a lid on it to some degree, never blown everything up the way Gio just had. She had her moments, a comment here, a clap back there, but she never went fully nuclear about it. So when Gio's posts were still fresh and people were scanning everyone connected to Carti for any kind of reaction, Iggy posted something on X that, on its own, meant basically nothing. Just LOL with an ellipsis, 3 letters and a trailing dot. Gio either saw it herself or someone showed it to her, and she responded publicly. She said she didn't know why that lady was laughing. That was enough to drag Iggy into the conversation entirely. Now there were 2 women, both connected to the same man, both suddenly visible to the same audience at the same time. The internet started treating it like a conflict between them, which wasn't really fair to either of them, but that's how these things go. Iggy didn't respond to Gio directly. She posted a few things that read as commentary on the moment. Something about not making vague posts anymore. Something about main character syndrome. But then she said something that reframed the whole situation. She confirmed that her relationship with Carti had involved violence and addiction. She said it wasn't just the past either. Those things had continued to affect her life, and specifically her son's life. And then she wrote, "Just know if I ever tell it all, it'll be to a judge in court, not social media." There's a big difference between someone saying I could expose you in the heat of the moment and someone calmly explaining that their preferred venue is a legal proceeding. Iggy was doing the second thing. A couple of days went by, and Gio appeared on a live stream with streamer Neon.
I'm trying to find a new cologne.
Jordan be wearing this Byredo cologne.
The audience in the comments was still on it, still telling her to follow through, still asking when the songs were dropping, still demanding the blow-up that everyone had been promised. She had set a deadline, she had made threats, she had gotten people genuinely hyped up for an explosion that never came. Instead of feeding into any of it, she just said he answered me. So I'm not going to, I would never. And then, I was mad, y'all, let that go. He had called her back. He had responded before the 11 a.m. deadline. Whatever that conversation actually looked like, it was enough for her to step back from everything she had said she would do. No leaked songs, no further posts, nothing. She pulled back completely and seemed almost embarrassed that it had gone as far as it did. The people who had been watching for drama were visibly annoyed in the comments. But the pullback actually said more about the whole situation than the original posts did. She had not been putting on a show that night. She had genuinely been at a wall. She got what she needed from him, an actual response, and she stepped down. That's a pretty normal human thing to do. The audience wanted her to follow through on something she never actually wanted to do in the first place. She had wanted him to pick up the phone. He did. That was the whole point. Things settled down for a few weeks after that. It looked for a moment like maybe they had worked whatever it was out and things were back to whatever normal looked like for them. Then photos started going around of Carti out somewhere with another woman. No explanation attached, no caption, nothing. Just images being passed around the way images always are, until they gather enough attention to become their own story. Gio saw them. She reposted the photos with a caption, "Knee ****, A always got a lollipop in his mouth." Then she posted a video of herself outside. A lollipop in her own mouth, looking straight into the camera. No caption, no paragraph explaining her feelings. She just stood there with the lollipop and let the image do what it needed to do. It landed harder than the angry posts had, honestly, because it was so controlled. It wasn't reactive or desperate. It was someone who had already processed something and found the exact right way to comment on it without saying a word. That kind of response takes a certain amount of composure, and compared to where things had been a few weeks earlier, it was a pretty significant shift. Not long after that, she posted screenshots of text messages. The contact was saved in her phone as Weirdo. The messages showed someone asking her to call back, reaching out repeatedly, saying they wanted to talk. She followed the screenshots with a direct tag. At Playboi Carti, "I keep telling you to leave me alone." And underneath that, "Mysterious Nonchalant King." That last part was doing a lot. Mysterious Nonchalant King is essentially the character Carti has built his whole public image around. The guy who doesn't chase, doesn't explain, keeps everyone at arm's length, and makes that feel cool. Gio was holding up screenshots of him blowing up her phone and calling him that, which was a pretty clean way of saying she saw through the whole thing without spelling it out. By this point, the pattern was obvious. Unfollows, deleted photos, the posts about leaving her alone. It all pointed in one direction. The relationship, whatever it had officially been, was over. And just like how it started, it ended without either of them saying so directly. One thing worth stepping back and actually looking at across all of this is how differently these three people handled the same situation. Gio put everything out in real time. Her anger, her grief, her threats, her screenshots, all of it was on her stories. As it happened, unfiltered and immediate. That's not necessarily a criticism. When you're in something painful and the relationship around that pain has never even been publicly acknowledged, there are limited places to put it. She didn't have a shared Instagram announcement she could delete. She didn't have a public relationship to publicly mourn. She had her own account and whatever she was feeling at 2 a.m. And that's what people got. Iggy handled it with a lot more distance, but she's also had years to process her version of things. She's been through the cycle of holding it together publicly, letting pieces out, getting written off as bitter, and going back to holding it together. By now, she knows exactly how much to say and how to say it. The violence and addiction comment, the court comment, those weren't slipped out accidentally. She chose those words deliberately and stopped at the right place, which takes a level of discipline that doesn't come without practice. And Carti, he didn't publicly address any of it. Not Gio's posts, not Iggy's statements, not the breakup rumors, not the screenshots. He kept performing, kept working, kept being the version of himself that exists on stage and in music. Whether that is emotional avoidance or just a deliberate choice to keep his private life private is genuinely hard to say from the outside. Probably both, at different moments. But the result was the same either way. Everyone around him was reacting publicly while he stayed completely quiet. What's interesting about the Iggy angle specifically is that it keeps getting treated as a side note when it's actually one of the more significant parts of this whole thing. She wasn't randomly involved. She shares a child with this man. She had years of experience with a version of him that Gio was now apparently running into herself. And when she said the things she said about violence, about addiction, about a courtroom, those weren't abstract claims. They were coming from someone with firsthand experience, who has very clearly thought through what she is and isn't willing to say publicly "the fan." Comment that kept getting repeated, "Iggy told y'all about this man years ago," wasn't coming out of nowhere. It was people connecting something they should have been paying attention to for a long time. There's also something worth noting about how both women got treated through all of this. Gio got called dramatic and messy. Iggy has historically been called bitter and jealous every time she has said anything. Neither of those characterizations is really fair when you actually look at what they were describing. A woman saying she was pushed past her limit by someone who wouldn't respond to her is not drama. A woman saying her relationship involved violence and that she's considering legal action is not bitterness. But those are the labels that tend to follow women who speak up about men with large fan bases. And both of them dealt with that here. At the end of all this, there was no official ending. No breakup post, no confirmation, no statement from either side. The relationship that never had an official start didn't get an official finish either. What it got was a contact saved as weirdo in someone's phone, a series of deleted posts, a lollipop video, and a very pointed sarcastic caption that said everything without technically saying anything. Gio said she crashed out one time, that she was mad, and to let it go. Iggy said if she ever tells it all, it won't be on social media. Carti said nothing throughout any of it. No response to Gio's posts publicly. No response to Iggy's statements. No clarification about his relationship status. Nothing. He performed at Rolling Loud, kept teasing new music, and kept operating exactly the way he always has. The most honest way to describe this whole thing is that it was real. Genuinely real, even with all the public noise around it. Gio cared about someone who wasn't giving her what she needed, and eventually ran out of patience waiting for it. Iggy had already been through her own version of this years earlier, and found herself watching someone else go through the familiar parts of it from a distance. And somewhere in the middle of all of it was a man whose entire public identity is built on being unreachable, and who, according to screenshots saved on someone's phone, was reaching out quite persistently once things actually started falling apart. That gap between who someone performs as and who they actually are in private is where all of this lived. It always does.